Welcome back, everyone, to Streaming Media Connect 2024, our 13th Streaming Media Connect event. I'm Steve Nathans-Kelly, editor-in-chief of Streaming Media, and I will be co-hosting this event this week with our esteemed Media Universe cartographer, Evan Shapiro, who'll be joining later today. Before we get started with this session, I want to thank our diamond sponsor, Native Frame, and now we have a special silent message from them. Okay, thanks, Tyler, for playing the video, and welcome to this session, which is Now It's Personal, AI and Streaming Personalization. And this session is brought to you by Deltatre, sports and entertainment technology provider to BBC, MLB, MLS, NFL, NHL, and other three-letter names you all know. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. At the end of the session, we will be giving away a $50 Amazon gift card to the attendee who was the first to correctly name the artist and the track you heard as we were all coming into the session here. You must be present to win, and you can only win once this week. The chat is open, so please chat in the chat, and we'll take Q&A at the end of the panel, so ask your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to as many as we can in the time we have. Sessions from all 3 days this week will be available next week on the Streaming Media YouTube channel. That link will be in the chat. And without further ado, I would like to welcome to the stage our moderator, Chris Pfaff. And Chris, there you are.
Hi, Steve.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, and we've got a great panel, so I will leave you to it.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Tyler, and thank everyone else associated with this great production. It's always good to be here at Streaming Media Connect. I think the session that we're about to have is really, really poignant, and let's bring on our great panelists. First and foremost, we have Shobana Radhakrishnan from Google TV. Welcome, Shobana. She comes to us from Palo Alto today. We also have Regina from TCL coming all the way from Burbank. Welcome, Chris. And all the way from Stockholm, Sweden, Arash Pendari. He is the founder of Vionlabs. Welcome, Arash. And last but not least, we have Alex Gruber, not too far away from me. Alex comes for us from New York, actually Brooklyn. He's Chief Product Officer of Deltatre and is aforementioned sponsor of this session. I'm going to really dive in here. We have so much to talk about. I think that there are two big things that we want to do on this session. One is really to demystify AI for personalization and streaming, and we'll talk about personalization and what that means to everybody here, and talk generally. The second is also really to distinguish between what we're all talking about in terms of AI and what we're not talking about, which is large language models and generative AI or general or open AI, things like that. But, you know, we're really blessed to have a very diverse panel. We've got a big name in Google, and Shobana will talk about Google TV, TCL, another big one. Deltatre I've known for years in the sports world. I've known Arash and Vionlabs, and Vionlabs is really the only pure play vendor on the panel. But all of you are involved in the content distribution chain. Talk about what you're doing with AI in content distribution. And Arash, I want to start with you because, as I said, you've probably been doing this the longest on the panel. What are the things that you really look at in working with some of your customers, which include the likes of Plex and Paramount Plus?
I mean, thank you, Chris. We do a lot of AI that is about kind of understanding content and putting context to assets, because the foundation of everything we do out there, no matter if it's personalization, analytics, content strategy, and so on, it needs a strong foundation of data. And I think that's been lacking for the last 20 years, is that we lived off just having something simple as a genre representing what a content is. And we're all about kind of teaching the AI to understand storytelling and emotions, because that are an extremely important part of understanding content. And I mean, it's not a simple task to teach machines to understand how we humans perceive audio and video emotionally, what makes us laugh, what makes us sad. And it's been an extremely fun journey to kind of teach a machine to understand how to watch a movie and kind of describe it back to me, give me the emotions. And
Yeah, and I think one of the first times we met, you had this really cool mobile kind of heuristics, which showed the
was the
different
color palette.
emotions. Yeah.
So what we did there, I mean, and this is a huge part of kind of teaching the AI, was to teach the AI as example how colors affect us as a human being. So how joyful colors makes us happy versus dark colors makes us maybe feel more emotional or scared, depending on the music and everything around it. But that was way back in the days. Now AI is so much more sophisticated. So you basically teach the AI, like I can give you an insight how it works, is that we take a couple of thousand of people, set them down and make them label assets that are like 5 second long, like 5 second videos. And then telling how that video makes them feel emotionally. This video made me feel sad. And then we have an emotional psychological model that is called valence, arousal, and dominance. So they rate basically valence, they're telling what is positive and negative emotions. And arousal is like stress level. So they say, this made me feel happy. And from 0 to 10, it made me feel 9 in stress. Then the AI picks up how we humans kind of feel emotionally when a video clip is very fast paced with very stressful music and very fast cuts. And it starts picking up those patterns. And it's really incredible what the AI can do these days when it comes to understanding content. And
Yeah.
that's where we come from.
Yeah, and Shobana, talk about. I mean, a lot of people know of Google TV, but maybe they don't really. I know that one thing is that it was really designed to be kind of AI driven. Talk about what you're doing in that distribution chain, and give a little further explication as well.
What you said is exactly right, Chris. We are trying to serve content to the users and make it simpler to find content you love. I often talk about this Friday evening moment, right? The visualize after a long work week, all you want is to kick your feet up on the sofa, find something to watch that you will enjoy for a few hours, maybe with your friend or your spouse. And you're spending 15, maybe 20 minutes or even longer just looking for content to watch. And then at the end of it, you just feel exhausted and you say, you know what, let's just go out for dinner or something. Because the number of content providers and the number of pieces of content all of them provide have been growing multifold over several years. So to find just simple content that I just am going to enjoy has become harder and harder over time. So the idea of Google TV is, can we bring the goodness of the AI behind Google search, the capabilities, to solve this frustrating situation for users where it's so hard to find good content to watch? And so what we try to do is, when you turn the TV screen on any device that runs Google TV as an experience, TCL, which we're going to be talking about today, is one of the partners that runs
Imagine that.
Exactly, right? So if you turn on a TV, you get Google TV. On the top, you can go easily to the apps you love. Like if you already know where you're going to find it, whether it's Netflix or YouTube or Hulu, you can go directly to it. But if not, the entire screen is actual content. You don't have to do all the homework to search. We do it for you so that we try to give you, in 1 or 2 clicks, hopefully you'll find something to watch. That's the whole premise of Google TV. And that's where what I will call responsible AI is a big part of it. Is we're trying to do our best guess of what you might like and take the friction out of your way to find it. But we never assume we know the user better than they know themselves. So there are a lot of explicit and implicit feedback and settings that the users can control to indicate to us what they generally enjoy watching. And so that's what Google TV does. So if people have heard the term Android TV, Android TV is an operating system, and Google TV is built on top of Android TV.
And that is exactly the explication I wanted. So thank you so much for that. And really, absolutely killing it in the market in TCL. Great company. But again, Chris, talk about what you're specifically doing, because you're doing some interesting things in the virtual world as well. And for those who don't know, TCL has a theater, of course, on Hollywood Boulevard. So get yourselves out to Hollywood and enjoy TCL, and you can even buy a TCL TV too. But you're also involved with TCL TV Plus, the app. So talk about what you're doing, and there's a lot of forward-thinking stuff that you do, and of course you're employing the intelligence that we just learned about from Shobana.
Yeah, about a year ago, we launched TCL TV Plus, which is now our flagship streaming app. We had an older app, TCL Channel, that now just has sunset, and we've now partnered with Google, with Roku, with Amazon Fire, all of our sets that are out there in terms of operating systems. TCL Plus is a connected TV fast service. We have over 350 channels now from all of the giant partners. So we're fairly well established very quickly within a year. We're catching up on the content game when it comes to, sort of the distribution, where you see a lot of our competitors in the OEM space are and have gotten quite a jump on us. But one of the differentiators, I think for us is AI. I mean, we are looking at sort of the environment, whether it be an app-based, environment like Pluto, or it is another OEM system, whether it's Samsung, LG, Vizio, et cetera. We pretty much all kind of have the same content we're delivering to all of our viewers. So in my history, I came from NBCU, I worked at Netflix in original content. I've always seen that to be the true differentiator and way to establish your brand and build it into something that becomes a little bit more unique in terms of who your audience could be serving and what you're doing. So as AI sort of evolved, in addition to just sort of search and navigation and that level of personalization, we really saw AI as a content creator for us, and a way for us to get into the original content game in a unique way that didn't involve the same expenditure of dollars, and also opened us up into a lot of areas of creativity and quality and et cetera. This sort of, you hear this term, the democratization of creativity with AI. But we're still very much believers in storytellers. We're storytellers first. We want to pair with great writers, great actors, producers, directors. So
and you're hiring.
Yeah, and we're hiring. We're still using all of those people. We're still using animators, and we're creating original content. And we're starting out in short form. And we launched our first short, Message in a Bot, about a month ago. We launched a film program called Film Machine that we announced about a month ago, and we just closed all of our applications, and we're announcing our candidates this week. So watch this space. You'll see, and it really was a target.
Are you doing a red carpet event this fall?
We are, and so all of the shorts that will be produced with these candidates that we've selected will premiere at the TCL Theater in Hollywood in November, and will be at the red carpet.
What's the date? Because I'll be in LA the week of the
11th. November 19th is the date.
Damn it. It might be too late for me, but not for other people. But this is really cool because you, of course, have quite a background, Netflix and right, the Comcast NBC world as well. For those who don't know, Chris was even involved in Sharknado, so you can blame him for that if you don't like it. But who doesn't like Sharknado? Come on, man. That's Friday night TV, Shobana. Sharknado, definitely. So I think, what's interesting to me is that you're in this domain of the smart TV world and the fast channel world, and the fact that you're using AI, to develop some virtual work as well, I think is really pointing toward where where people want to be. If you can certainly figure out, you've got a lot of intelligence, that's on the device side. There's a lot obviously coming through the library side, but it seems like you're also looking to develop content that's AI driven as well. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that seems like Yeah.
We have an application called IDEO, which is sort of our interactive TV, and that has an AI component to it in which you can talk to the characters within a particular show, and they are AI characters that then give you additional engagement or knowledge over the course of a film or within the context of a show. You know, for instance, if you're watching a cooking show, you can ask Rick Bayless, you know, for a menu or a menu substitution or a suggestion of where to travel in Mexico to experience
And you
certain
worked with Rick
foods.
Bayless, right?
We did, yeah. So we are working with that show and in particular, and so exciting things that are on that at front of AI and technology, sort of bringing to the viewer an opportunity to engage with the content in a lot more richer, deeper ways than just the passive experience. At the same time, it still allows for the passive experience. So it's option in, right? So it's not forcing you to go down a path that if you want to just lean back on your TV and watch it, that's always there. But if you're looking for something a little bit more engaging, that you can push some buttons on your remote or use voice and sort of connect to the content in a new way.
And thank you for mentioning that, because I want to get back to the multimodal discussion a little later. But right now, Alex, you're in an interesting position because I've known Deltatre for years in the sports world. So that would seem to me to be both difficult on one hand for live, but we've seen a lot of great use cases for AI, and certainly in virtual layovers and LED walls, and you know, that's where the money is. Talk about, you know, what you're doing in this distribution chain with AI.
Yeah, so you know, Deltatre powers and brings technology to a lot of content creators and distributors and broadcasters and telecoms that run very large you know, organizations and OTT. And the way that we think about it is really kind of two faceted. One is, how do we make the end user's experience better? So how does an end user interact, right? So you can do the simple button, point things around. You can use voice. You can use you know, multiple different ways of interacting. And then how do you make it cost effective for the actual provider to deliver this content? Not only just deliver it, but also tag it, then serve ads against it, and optimize the revenue side of the business, which is also very important.
And is this your bespoke product?
Yes, it's
right?
our own tech.
Mm-hmm.
And our own infrastructure.
Pat on the back there. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, we do partner with others to bring in the best of breed and assemble things, but majority of it is on top of us. We're not building our own kind of AI that's available commercially, but we are training above it and fine-tuning it.
And you're doing something that, you know, I've always been fascinated by really great use cases of sentiment analysis in video AI, and again, through the full stack. I mean, text, audio, video. But you're doing something that I think is super cool from you know, this personalization standpoint of like looking at things like what's the weather outside. I mean, you know, really taking in all of the external data. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I think, as Arash brought out, is, you know, using AI to understand what your mood is when watching certain content. We're taking that plus what's going on in the world around you. So if it's raining, if it's sunny, if it's super hot, you know, if you're in a political climate, if you have something else going on globally, we want to make sure that we're leveraging that data as well, because we as humans are influenced not just by what's in front of us, but what's around us. And so we're now optimizing what ads we serve. We try to make it, you know, competitive to what you're watching, to make sure that we are kind of on theme. So if you're watching a comedy, you probably don't want to see an advertising that doesn't make sense or is off that. Or if it's super hot outside, we should probably be doing something like travel and food and outdoor activity. If it's torrential rain, you probably don't want to be talking about that. Maybe it is a sunny vacation somewhere, you know, in the Caribbean. So we're leveraging all external data as well as the media itself to really optimize that user experience.
Yeah, this is very cool. And so I want to get back a second to talking about multimodal aspects of AI personalization, particularly for things like content recommendation and search. And Arash, I want to go to you at first for this, because I know you've had some success, for example, with Viaplay and Cineverse in that arena. But where do you see things going, you know, with that side?
I think we had a discussion a bit earlier before the panel, and Shobana made a really great point that when it comes from personalization aspect, I think in the discovery, it has to be very seamless for me as a user. Like it has to be invisible. And that means that whatever is going to attract me to watch what I'm going to watch has to be, first of all, adapted to me. So no matter if it's the artwork or the small short clip that is playing in the top, because that's the tools you use to get people to engage with the content, right? So to get people's attention and actually get them to watch something, it's extremely hard these days. And we are fighting what I always say, like the good enough level, because people tend to not put too much effort to find what is actually what, like the perfect recommendation. They just watched a guilty pleasure, like Swedish Hollywood Wives, or, another episode of Big Bang Theory, because it's the easy choice. And to beat that easy choice, we have to really make the user experience seamless and really personalized. And I was going to say, sadly, TikTok is really good at this. Like there's some players out there that really does that algorithmic thing really good without demanding too much engagement from the user, asking me to specifically rate a movie or whatever it is. It happens invisible in the background because they do understand both the user and the content the user is consuming quite well. So I think where this is going in the future is that we're going to see less and less user experience, less stuff in the UI, and much more, personalized fast channels or, experiences that are just like when I turn on my TV, I'm starting to consume from the first second, not a bunch of carousels, not a bunch of different things happening around.
Right. Right.
And those channels can be everywhere from like short preview clips playing to get you to engage with a 2-hour movie or a whole season of a show that you're uncomfortable engaging with. I always take the example that I started watching Peaky Blinders because of YouTube Shorts. YouTube Shorts showed me a scene with Tom Hardy that really dragged me in after 6 seasons. I refused to watch that show for 6 seasons. Like, this is not my show. It's not.
I was the same way. It's really funny. I remember people talking about it at the beginning, and then I was like, I don't know, for whatever reason, it seems a little too violent. Which for an American, you think, really too violent? But it was, I don't know, it may have been a YouTube short or some other recommendation, and it might have been social media. I think that, certainly if you look, and this is Google, I see stuff in my Google feed that's usually like a little mention of something, like, for example, Max does this, something that was mentioned on John Oliver. And it might have been 3 seconds of something, but somehow it gets picked up in the news somewhere, and that pulls me in. Now, I watch a show all the time, but I don't always watch it on the Sunday night. So I find that kind of interesting of how things get sliced. Shobana, excuse me. What do you look at with respect to this multimodal personalization side of things? Because of course, you guys are all over that with search.
Actually, what you're saying is very important, and I also want to go back to a point that Alex made, which is also thinking about what events will be relevant for the user. Like what's on the user's mind? What might they find interesting at this point in time? Now, the point in time could be time of day, or it could be there is a huge social event going on that everybody is leaning into on news for, or it could be a sports event, which I definitely love watching, for example, Wimbledon tennis, right? So just being aware of what could be on this user's mind based on events happening externally or what this user finds interesting typically. And when we wear that hat on, then you can even aid people's natural journeys. Like for me in the morning, I just want to see news headlines, and then I get into commute mode and get into my car, and maybe I listen to some music, on my devices. And in the evening, I'm up for watching a whole episode on weekday evenings or a whole movie on weekends, right? So if my platform can help me find these things when I'm in that mindset without me having to scroll through a bunch of things and do homework. So that's, I feel, the best way to bring AI to serve the user. At the end of the day, if you're not serving the user, then all bets are off in terms of whether it's ad serving or monetization or even scale. So that's how I feel. And that's how Google TV tries to match also what kinds of content you may find interesting now. And some of you mentioned short clips or shorts. Think of it as even highlights. Let's say I went on vacation and for 7 days I didn't watch anything on my TV. But I know that typically this person loves this kind of sport. What if magically I could bring highlights from that event? right? So just thinking about what form is most suited to this user and what they might find useful at that point. I think that's the hat we try to wear. But of course, we need to make sure that to the point Arash made earlier as well, we need to be transparent about how we are doing it. So the users know and feel like they're in control of how we are processing, what their preferences are. So really enabling the users to feel powerful in getting AI to work for them. I think
Yeah,
that
and I think that what's interesting to me is, and Chris, I want you to talk about this, of course, because you're building in some interactive modules here, which I think are enable great choices or not, but at least there's a level of transparency there. And I don't want you to break any confidences here, but what things have you learned in doing this?
I mean, I want to sort of continue the conversation sort of about really catering to the viewer. And I think even in my linear, sci-fi days, we talked a lot about viewer behavior and about seasonality of content. What do
Right.
people like to watch when it's
Not
snowing
just
out,
pumpkin spice
raining
latte
out?
time. Yeah.
Yeah, not just, exactly. Not just Christmas, not just Halloween time or obvious connections to seasonal content you could put on. But, AI is probably getting to the point where it can know that it is storming in your region and you may want to watch pull up the blanket, and watch a Lifetime type film, because that's the escapist, comfy, guilty pleasure moment that you might normally have based on other seasonality. So I think that level of specification and not just sort of the guesswork based on prior behavior might also sort of elevate the level of customization that can happen in personalization to bringing moods. I mean, when we were at Netflix, we used to joke about personalized icons that people had, and they labeled them as like, when I'm in a sad mood, because the algorithm they would go in there would feed them all of the sad stuff, and then happy icon they had as a different user profile, so that it had fed them all of the happier, lighter pair, and they kept their algorithms separate, and never the twain shall meet. So how do you in a single profile ever combine those two things and get smart enough with AI to actually know what the user is looking for? So that level of specification, I think, and detail is probably something that's on the horizon.
Yeah, and I think it also gets back to understanding your library too. I mean, we talk about this a lot in the fast channel world, and with respect to what somebody may have, you may have 10,000 hours of martial arts stuff, and that's great. You can sell a lot of ads against that. But we're mostly, I mean, we're talking about all aspects of streaming, not just AVOD and fast and things like that. I think for subscribers, who are paying a premium, that gets really interesting, I think, with AI. But Alex, I mean, you come from the enterprise software side, so what you're building has to scale, obviously, and it's interesting because with Deltatre, and you're serving really big enterprises that have massive fan bases, but in some cases the playing fields have been around for a long time, and this is something that's occurred to me many times over the years. Shobana mentioned Wimbledon. That game has kind of been the same for a long time, but there are so many new twists that we can get into the storytelling, even just through technology. I think, what can be done with cameras and drones is just phenomenal. But again, getting into this idea of the multimodal, what sorts of things do you look at and have you learned?
Yeah, so we look at it from a couple of different ways. One is, how do you change the experience of the viewer, right? So you can have a point of view of one player instead of what's being broadcast live. So you can always see like point of view of Federer and play at his angle. You can do the same thing in hockey. You can have a goalie view versus the view of all, where the camera takes you. It's interesting. It's happening in golf a lot as well. So instead of seeing what's being broadcast, you can actually follow a golfer through the entire experience. So I think that's really where technology allows us to do that, because all the cameras are being captured. It's just about how do we deliver that experience to the user. On the data side, it gets really interesting because you can now use voice to get a piece of data. So I was watching the Stanley Cup, And I wanted to know how many teams have come back from a 3-0 loss in a series. For me to do that previously, I had to go and find a bunch of filters and use a search engine, but do something to try to get this data. Today, I just kind of asked our app, we got all the stats. And so that becomes a really nice experience for the end user and actually for the commentators as well. Because commentators have today a huge
Right.
team.
Now, are
that
you using
brings this data.
stats or somebody like that, or
Yeah,
who
so
do you?
we have our own data feed. So in certain sports, we capture the data. So it's all of our internal data. Sometimes we integrate depending on the sport.
Mhm.
It is a highly fragmented space, but we've normalized that. So we can plug in into anything, our data or somebody else's, and make that exact same experience available for any sport. So I think that gets really interesting for the end user to be able to fine tune, but also use voice and explain what they're looking for. And then you have AI the new AI that's out there to understand what you're actually looking for. Go get
Right.
that data and serve it back up.
Right. And I think, I mean, obviously, with respect to personalization of content, I mean, I'm an NBA fanatic, so the overtime app that gives you the 4 views for the NBA that Turner has, I mean, that I find fascinating. And you mentioned golf. I think the British Open, they had uh, like a, there was one par 3 hole that was kind of hilarious because, it had like the bunker from hell. This was at Royal Troon, and of course the weather was just completely awful. I mean, Scotland in summer. So that was funny. I mean, it
Okay.
was really. I watched that for more time than I thought I was going to watch. So, but those are choices. But I think that what you're saying in terms of sort of baking this in is that you've got the capability to kind of follow where sort of where the viewer is going. Is that a fair assessment?
You can follow where the viewer is going. You can also use now translation in real time to actually have the game in the language that you prefer. So in most sports, you have it in English plus one more language, Spanish or something like that, depending
Right.
on where in the world. Here, you can pick any language you want, and the system will automatically translate it for you. Live blogging, where instead of a human doing it all, now the systems are doing it for you. So there's lots of really good use cases to bring a better experience, and then the user gets to pick which experience they want depending on where they are. I think there was an example of I watched something really early in the morning and then I'm in my car. Well, if you're watching a sports, it's happened to me and I have to go pick up my kids. I'm watching it on TV. Now I'm going to listen to it on the radio. Then I want it live blogged and I want to get a message when there's a goal or there's some play. And I want to be able to see that by just clicking it and automatically having a replay. You have all this tech now available. Before it was all humans cutting, editing, transcribing it, putting it up on the line, and there was a significant delay between somebody
Right.
you being able to see a replay. Now it's almost instantaneous, which I think is really where we're pushing sports and that storytelling experience to the next level.
Yeah, and I think that we can sort of see where that goes, and on the multimodal side, I mean, I'm somebody who's watching this stuff on devices all the time, so I don't wait. I mean, if I'm in the car, I'm streaming that damn thing on the other seat. So yes, front seat viewing. I know it's dangerous, but we can figure out how to do that. But I think that this is, for me, I mean, that's also a network issue, and of course you, Alex, I think deal maybe a bit more than the others on the network side as well. So I'm curious, how that comes into play from the AI side.
Yeah, obviously one of the biggest expense is delivering the content. So there's a lot of experimentation now in how to use AI to make compression better, bitrate better, delivery of the content better, picking the right network, the right edge, CDN, and all of that. So I think we're super early on that. What I've seen and what we've played around with it is still fairly immature for watching an NFL playoff game. You don't want us experimenting there, but it's starting to happen. And probably over the next 12 months, we'll see a lot more of that getting into production where we can deliver it in a more cost-effective way for the right
And
device.
yeah, and I think that when you look at the ability, we work with companies that do this kind of massive scale AI-driven mass encoding like codec market, for those who know, really, really, very, very much ahead of the curve. But, again, where libraries are going and where usage goes, I think that this becomes a much sort of richer environment for the user experience. I wanted to talk with all of you right now about clipping and curation, because I think that when we look at the title that we have for this session, personalization really, gets down into really understanding, sort of a bidirectional understanding between a provider, even a library, if you will, and or an advertiser, and the viewer, the user. And there can be different aspects of interaction there. But curation seems to be, has always been a bit of a holy grail, I think. And Arash, I mean, you guys have been banging on this for a long time. Where do you think we are now in 2024, and maybe do you see in the next couple of years that there will be some milestone or tipping point that we reach where some of the things we've talked about come to fruition?
When it comes to curation, I mean, we still have a lot of work to do if we look at the actual user experience. And I always like talking about from the user's perspective, is that, like I mentioned earlier, the experience today is very, very tedious for users with overwhelming amount of choice. And we are really, everybody trying to work very hard to get people to specifically focus on one specific asset and start engaging with that as soon as possible, as soon as they open the app or the TV. And this task have grown, obviously, with, much more content being out there. So as far as I see it, the future right now is all about kind of optimizing the workflows that we have to serve the customers, the assets we're all talking about, with a personal level of it. Like, I was talking to a client the other day about, they were sitting 2 hours for each long form movie, and extracting around 5 to 6 different clips. And that is a lot of long time to spend for a library of 100,000 assets. So by the end of the day, to help them to really pick, say, a clip that is very focused on the dialogue and the emotions and the dramatic scenes versus clips that are just hardcore action, and trying to pick out these moments from these assets and serving them on a personal level, I think is actually going to be one of the main keys to get people to interact with content. It is very similar to what we've seen the last 20 years with linear TV. I mean, there's a reason why people end up watching, Mean Girls on TV for the 14th time, or watching Lord of the Rings every Christmas again, because they pass that channel, that specific scene they saw brings them back into the content. And this is, I think, the key to get people to engage with content. And that's what we need to do. Right now, I feel like users are jumping between apps. They're jumping between different carousels, and they're just constantly browsing instead of consuming. And that's why I like bringing up TikTok as an example, even though I don't like their product at all, is that they have done a great job of getting me to consume and telling you what I like directly. I skip all the videos with the dancing, I watch all the videos with the cooking. 10 seconds afterwards, the clips I'm getting served to me is cooking shows. And then they keep you in the rabbit hole. So yeah, the algorithms need to pick this up, and the user experiences need to change. And I feel that it needs to be much more natural. Like an example from Alex, I'm not very good at sports, so please correct me if I'm doing wrong, but I do believe information overflow when it comes to sports is a thing. Like, there's a lot of stats to keep track on, but asking for the stat that is relevant for the moment that is relevant as an example. Like, I think it's the same when it comes to movies and TV series. It's like Amazon's X-Ray. It's a great feature, but I don't want to know every actor at all time when I pause the video every single time. But I want to ask my TV, oh, who was that? And pick that up, and the TV then tells me, this is this actor, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's all about information kind of also being served at the right time, I would say, instead of just overflow of choice.
But that's a level that I think gets into sort of the contextualization of content. And one of the things that I want to sort of move into is even conversational content. Shobana, I'm sure that this is something that you're involved in some way. Give us a taste of where you think this goes in terms of that level of interactivity with the viewer and the content, and how the UI and UE comes into play.
Sure. I think also I wanted to add to something Arash was saying, which is knowing what the user tends to engage with and giving them more of that is a very good algorithm. At the same time, we also get feedback from users on clustering, like too much of the same kind of content. So sometimes injecting a variation is refreshing and brings them back to be interested in the platform. So I'll call it quote unquote randomizing, but introducing something which they haven't typically engaged with tends to be good for both the content provider and the user. Sometimes is something we've noticed. So just wanted to add that in the mix of how we think about content. Now, coming back to your point about voice and conversational and multimodal in general, like for us, TV has what we call an ambient mode, because a TV is the biggest screen in your room. So it doesn't have to only play movies and shows to be interesting. It can be photos from the party you had last week. It just fills the screen and is giving you an album that is on display when you turn the TV on and leave it on. So even for that, I think we can bring in voice enablement. For example, if I'm able to just use voice and look for a movie or a show, or I want the TV to do something, for example, change my setting to this. Imagine the possibilities if I could just use voice and count on
Exactly.
voice to do everything in my living room. So TV becomes like a large, helpful device for you, and how magical that could be. And then when you add the interactive on top of it, it could go two ways, by the way. Interactive beyond one follow-up question before you find your content can feel like homework to the user again, which is, I'm just telling you what I want. Why don't you just get me the content? Why are we having a conversation?
Right. Don't you know me? Come on. I pay you money.
Can't you understand me? So I think the voice enabled is immensely liberating, which is I just speak like I'm speaking to a human. My TV is able to process it with reliability, high connectivity, high quality, context awareness, and gets me what I want in one step. Is actually, I think, the ideal way for voice to make magic in your living
I
room.
think so too. I mean, for example, I mean, but also, I look. I've been in this business a long time, so I accept a lot that maybe the average person doesn't. For example, the open mic. Now, I've had an iPhone for years, and I've had an Android phone for years, because we have clients who have Android apps, and you deal with Samsung. You got to have. So, point being, I have no problem with the idea of, let's say, Google TV knowing that I was, say, in Amsterdam for a week, and maybe it wants to show me the David O. Russell film Amsterdam. I have no problem with that. I've loved. We came back from spending a couple of weeks in Piemonte, and then went to a screening of Grand Budapest Hotel. That was 10 years ago. And it was literally like the day after we'd come back, I was like, wow, that's cool. And I was thinking, what if AI could do that? And it's, so I don't have a problem with that. I like to think that more and more people, with permission, would think about that, or
Yeah,
bake
if I
it
may
in.
add to that, Chris, if I may add to that very quickly, I think the core is to believe that you're there to remove barriers from the user's way for completing the journey they want to complete right now. So I think if you use, then voice just becomes an enabler. And I think when you build a platform, you should know when is voice having an interfering effect, or a set of keys they need to go through on the remote, and when is it enabling. So I think if we wear the hat of the user, in your case, you're comfortable, and it's actually magical and positive to find it reflected, find your location reflected. Whereas for some people, they may want to keep the same continuity. I was watching episode 2 at home yesterday. Today I flew to this place. I still want continue watching episode 3. And so really wearing the hat of what takes the barrier out of the way, and how can I use voice or other AI-based mechanisms to do that, is probably the way to think about it.
Yeah, and I think that this may be something that requires even more powerful hardware. But I like to think that we haven't talked so much about the cloud, but this idea of sort of this conversational cloud that enables something that's more personalized as well. And by the way, extra points to Arash for mentioning X-ray. So we can name drop, other tools in here, and we may. So kudos there. But I thought that was an interesting point. But let's talk, in terms of building what comes next, because I think that there's also an assumption, I feel anyway, and particularly with the rising generation, that everything content out there should be seen across SKUs and should be available. And to everyone's point, that we should have the capability to interact with that. And I think that something we haven't talked about so much right here, and I want Chris to kind of weigh in on this, is what level of gamification there needs to be or not. It seems, Chris, like what you're doing at TCL is embodying perhaps a little bit more in terms of the virtual world and gamification, that level of content interaction. Is that something that we see where AI can definitely help on all sides?
Yeah, I mean, we've had conversations about that. I think, the idea of offering some kind of reward systems or, point systems or things of that nature that are going to bring viewers back to consume more content. I think, we're battling for attention, and I feel like the attention spans overall from consumers are getting shorter. They're making their decisions faster, so they're very distracted by their phones, TikTok, social media, whatever else is going on in the room, gaming, etc. So capturing that attention as quickly as you can with any kind of tools that are at our disposal is very, very important. I always kind of ask myself, though, at what level are we encouraging more of a short form behavior by sort of, leaning in heavily to that? I mean, we're doing some shorts now and we're finding the engagement is really great. It's like completion rate is really high. So it's like, but of course it's a short, right? And so, but is that going to only challenge me going forward with content that we have that's longer form and that we produce as original? Because if you don't capture that attention for a while, or people don't have the time that they want to put into it, they just want to move on to something else. And we're finding the sort of totality of small consumption is definitely feeding the entertainment quotient that people are looking for.
But don't you find that, I go back to, remember Foursquare, where you could be the mayor of a certain location? Could you be the mayor of a certain genre, like film noir? I don't know, like, maybe, say if you've been to all of these locations, in Lower Manhattan, like pick up on South Street or something, and I feel that could be cool. I mean, that'd be like a total TCM thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a metaverse, right, conversation that's gone on for a while about will that exist, and where will that be an environment that people will want to go in and live in and inhabit, as sort of an escapist sort of realm, whether that's the next level of Roblox or whatever it might be. At the same time, I would say, like, I don't know, like, is that the role for AI to be the mayor of the genre, and that's going to tell you all of the history of sci-fi, for instance, when you're looking for the sci-fi films that you didn't watch and didn't know, as you've stumbled upon new stuff that has been unearthed for you through word of mouth or through other apps.
Well, I think that for me, I mean, as somebody who has a degree in film history and criticism and semiotics, the idea of taking the layers of referentiality, the identifiers, all these things that we talk about, and going back, through history, this is where, Alex's stats at the ready, or history at the ready, or, that look that was actually ripped off from, Black Narcissus. I mean, Scorsese is always alluding to famous films, but, it's like, that scene, R2-D2 and C-3PO, that's from Hidden Fortress by Kurosawa. Things that'd be like, oh, I didn't know that. Now go watch the damn film, stop, like, flitting about. That's what I want to do, is reward these people.
And even better, if it's not just go watch the film, it's press here to watch that scene from the film.
That's how you get people engaged, right? The idea of saying, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, now I've got to go watch that. But, I'm the guy who likes to mess with all these algorithms, right? Like I literally, no, I'm serious. I will say, like, I'll open up, a series that I have no intention of binge watching, but I'll watch 1 minute, and then it's queued up. So people are like, hey, you want to continue watching? Well, it's like, I barely watched it. I just want to mess with your algorithm, So, I'll do that. but no, if I'm going to watch something, like, I commit, I'm not going to watch an episode and then go back 6 months later. I mean, it's kind of, I'm a completist, I think, is
Yeah, I
the
mean, I
term
think
of
the
art.
key here is that both AI or any algorithms are only as smart as the information you feed it. I've watched content on other services, and so it's possible that when I go into this new service, it doesn't know what I've watched in my prior history.
Right.
It may not suggest something that I am absolutely looking for. It just doesn't know what I've watched.
And that's where I was alluding to earlier. Something that I think is, to me, a holy grail, a search across. I mean, Google will do this. If you want to say, where can I watch something, it'll give you, where you can watch it, where you can buy it, rent it, all that. God bless you, Google, and YouTube and Shobana. God bless you too. Because I bought a couple of films off of YouTube. Third Man, yes, I did, and Jimi Hendrix stock. So full disclosure. But now we're going to go to your questions because we're running out of time. Paul Filio asks, while streaming personalization can definitely be helped with AI, how are AI-related data management, security, governance, and compliance issues with PII addressed? We're going to you, Alex, first for that.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it a little bit, kind of in the beginning. But first of all,
Okay, and now you're the professor. Tell people what PII
exactly.
is.
So it's about transparency. First of all, we have to be clear with the user on what we're doing, what we're capturing, and how we're using it. And then once we're done using it, we need to make sure we're deleting it. So the worst thing you can do is having a bunch of data that lives forever. That's just you're asking for trouble. And then at some point, removing all the PI information of it. So if you want to do studies over a long period of time, remove all the identifiable information as you're storing it. So I think there's just standard good practices around data that's we all know what they are. We don't always apply them, but I think it's just we need to have the diligence to do it right. And so it's transparency, it's good data management, good governance, and then actually doing what we're saying we're doing. I think is also I've seen issues where you say what you're doing, you're not actually doing it, and somebody figures it out later that you stored something somewhere you shouldn't have.
Yeah, and thank you, Paul, for asking that question, because that is a key part of all this. Riju Ritesh asked something, and this is more Gen AI related. What is the confidence level with Gen AI with respect to its hallucination or hallucinations? Have you been able to train the model? Now, we're not really talking much about Gen AI here, but I thought I would throw that in just because one of you might want to answer that. And if not, not.
It's all depends. You go, Shobana.
Thanks, Arash. Maybe you can chime in after me if you would like. So one thing is, as Riju points out, we should be aware that LLMs will have hallucination. I think it's important to really go with your eyes wide open and prototype and actively test it early on. Don't wait until you figured it all out, built the feature, and then think it'll be part of your testing. Because a lot of times the training of the model is a big part of what you even decide to build as far as user flows. And so doing it early on, think of when you're looking at UX mocks, you start looking at how the model is doing and hallucination evaluation. I think beyond that, the training itself is very tailored to your need, your use case, and your device type too, because training of models is beyond the accuracy element. It's also what can your target device handle. For example, TV, we always optimize for lower memory because of lower cost optimization, but on your mobile phone, it's a very different story. And so really internalize what you're training the model for, and beyond accuracy as well.
Good question. Next one, I think we're going to go to a very shy person who doesn't like to speak much, named Simon Applebaum. And the question is really, what comments do you have about two recent ventures, Showrunner.ai and Dreamflare? This is, any thoughts? Yes, no, maybe? Well, maybe you can get back to him at another time, but these are recent things. So I think maybe we had one more question. Mr. Anonymous asks, in addition to streaming customization, what about AI tools that users can use that could be customized? What's your opinion on that? Alex, I'll go to you for that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's we can imagine a bunch of different use cases. I think the reality is what is the user trying to solve for is always going to be the question, and you have to give them the tools to try to do that. I don't know how much end users are going to customize their own AI models or their AI tools. I think the general consumer just wants to get to where they're going in the fastest possible way, and it's up to the vendors and the providers to give them those sets. I think in sports and data it would be actually really interesting because you do have your favorite teams, your favorite way of looking at it, depending where you are in the season. I think that's where you can start really doing fine-tuning things and your fantasy sports leagues and all of that. Then you can have AI adjusted to what you're trying to do. But I think it'd be interesting to know what specifically they're trying to solve for.
I think that with respect to where people are using some of these LLM models, I think that's another question and a question for another panel. And I just kind of put that out there to people who are watching this now and also on replay because we will get smarter. There will be ways to train this data even better, but we've come a long way. I think that some of these larger services, whether they're co-joined like Max, obviously has a massive amount of data and a lot of opportunities for those services. And then ones in Europe, we talked about Viaplay, which of course has made inroads into the US. And of course on the sports side too, we'll see more consolidation. I think AI will have to come more to the fore because there's just so much bloody content out there. If you go to ESPN Plus, it's great to have, but there's a point at which I just am dizzied by the amount of stuff. And it's really a question of what I want to watch and what's there and what time, because all this is competing for time, which may go to why Regina is working on short form content, because we're snacking, right? But I'm bummed. Maybe I'll have to stay on another week to go to your thing on the week of the 19th at the TCL Theater. But we're going to wrap it up here. This has been a great discussion, and as I said, we really could spend another hour talking about different aspects of AI, but this is what we had with Shobana Radhakrishnan. Give it up for Shobana from Google TV, Arash Pendari from Vionlabs, Alex Gruber, Deltatre, thank you, Alex, and Regina from TCL. Thanks, Chris. I'm Chris Pfaff from Pfaff Tech Media LLC, Pfaff Tech Media LLC, easy for me to say. And now back to Steve Nathans-Kelly.
Yeah, and thank you, Chris. Thanks to all of you. Yeah, as Chris said, it was a fantastic discussion and maybe the liveliest chat we've ever had on a session here. It was just you got everybody talking, so that was great. Before we close, I just want to congratulate Matthew LeCount, who is the winner of our gift card for this session. Matthew correctly identified the track Rounder by Moby Grape, and of course the late great guitarist Jerry Miller. And congratulations, Matthew. You should receive something in your email soon letting you know how to claim your prize. And we will be back in a half hour with our next session, Breaking Fast, How to Succeed with Fast News. So definitely come back to that one. Thanks again to all the panelists and to Deltatre, and we will hopefully see you for the next session.
Thanks, everyone.